Chapter 16. Alex woke in the middle of the day, hungry like she'd never been before, and sore and tired. She glanced over at the spot where Max had laid, aware that Max had come to her last night, and what had transpired between the two. Her thought was that he couldn't have left her when he knew how important the night had been for the both of them. She wanted to wake up in his arms and know his commitment to them getting back together, and her seeing her children. She wanted to hear him tell her how much he loved her. Strutting to the shower with Max's dried cum on her body, she needed a shower first before anything. Before he looked at her this morning, she wanted to look her best. Alex had been sure Max hadn't gone too far, because there were none of his fucking notes he'd usually leave beside the bed or on his pillow. And if he had stepped out, he'd be back because he did say that he wanted to talk to her. Confident that she and Max would get back together, she strutted to the bathroom, but before she reached it, her phone began ringing and she rushed to pick it up. Max? No, it's not Max. It's... I know your voice, Jonas. What is it this time? I'm in trouble. What else is new, Jonas? You can't go anywhere without getting in trouble. A man like you should never go out of the house at all, Alex joked. This is serious, Alex. I'm at the courthouse now, and I'm being charged with murder, and I don't know the woman or whose apartment I was in or anything. Alex froze. She didn't know what to say. When it reached her brain what Jonas had just said, all she wanted to do was scream, "For fuck's sake, Jonas, not now and not today," but she didn't, she just listened. I need to make bail, and I don't have any money, Alex. The court-appointed attorney is useless. I need a lawyer now. They don't want to give me a low bail because it's murder. I think it's in the millions. The prosecutor doesn't want me to have bail because he said that I'm a flight risk because of the Blackstone name. You know me, Alex, Jonas's voice cracked. I wouldn't hurt a woman. Never in my life did I touch a woman except for sex, and that's what they said, that after I had sex with her, I killed her. That doesn't make any sense. Where is Max? Have you called him? Alex's voice low. I called him first and no answer. I need lots of money to get me out of here, and then my lawyer isn't sure they'll grant me bail. I need Max to help me. I'll get you out no matter what I have to do, Jonas. You can count on me. Have I ever let you down? Alex said, searching around for the remote. Never. I'll get you bail and a lawyer. Relax and I'll have you out today. Alex turned around in a circle after her call ended with Jonas. She could hear the panic in his voice. She felt so sorry for him. How had he put himself in such a situation like this? When she turned on the news to try to see if there was any mention of Jonas, not surprising, it was all over the news. A reporter standing in front of the courthouse where they brought Jonas turned to the camera and spoke into a microphone. Jonas Blackstone, the brother of Maximilian Blackstone, a well-known billionaire, has finally gotten himself in trouble that he can't get out of this time even with his brother's help. The police say they have him dead to right, with his DNA all over a dead girl's body. The young woman from a blue-collar family in New Jersey was reported missing a week ago, but was found last night in the alley of an apartment building. The reporter's camera panned away to show the policeman and several of the young men and women with coats over their heads, hiding from their parents, being led away for questioning. The reporter continued, cameras in front of the apartment building showed Jonas Blackstone getting out of a cab with two girls and going into the building, and cameras from another angle had him stepping inside an apartment. There were no cameras at the rear of the apartment building in the alley to show how the girl got there, and how Jonas carried her behind the building and dumped her. Yet the police suspected that he took her down a fire escape, leading down to the alley below. Alex, petrified, rushed into the shower for a quick one, and then called Christian. "Can you send a car for me, Christian? I have an emergency. I think I'm too upset to catch a cab. I'd like to talk to you. I was wondering when you'd call. I had been watching this all morning on CNN, and I want to talk to you as well." Alex dressed in a hurry, not bothering to eat, and when she walked outside the hotel, Christian's limo was waiting at the entrance. When the car came to a stop, Alex hurried out of the car, not waiting for Christian's driver to get out and open the door. She found herself in the elevator and stepped out into Christian's penthouse apartment with him standing there waiting. Alex rushed to Christian, and he held her in his arms. "You're going to be all right, Alex. Everything is going to be all right, sweetheart. I'll do whatever you want to get Jonas out of jail." Christian led Alex by her hands to the great room overlooking the city. "On my way out of my hotel suite, I think they said that Jonas wasn't granted bail because he's a flight risk and he has money to leave the country. But Jonas has nowhere to go. Can't you understand? He's like a child, and he doesn't have Max to depend on." "Where's Maximilian?" Christian asked, and the way he'd asked that question, he knew something, but Alex didn't know what. But then, anyone who knew anything about Maximilian Blackstone knew he had to be flying somewhere in the US or to some foreign country. Max never trusted anyone but Jonas to help him, and Max didn't know how to delegate. He had been a hands-on kind of man, and that's why he'd gotten in trouble with his marriage and everything in his life, his health and his sex life. "I don't know," Alex said, trying not to answer the question with an excuse. "I tried calling, but he didn't answer." She didn't want to tell Christian about last night, because frankly it wasn't his business. That was between her and Max. Besides, she didn't know just what had happened between the two of them. What would she have told him anyway? That he ate her pussy and she sucked his dick, and they fucked, and after that she used a crop on his ass to bring about an orgasm, and they both slept soundly holding each other. She slept so sound that she didn't hear him sneak out of her bed. When Alex woke, he was gone. Disappeared, in his usual manner. Nothing had changed when she'd been hoping something would, considering that they were so far apart, and they'd never had a gap in their relationship the likes of the Grand Canyon. "If you want me to call up someone, I will, and I'll have Jonas out in a matter of hours, but I want something in return." Alex glanced over at Christian with a knowing glance. What could he want? A kiss, a date? That would be easy. She'd go out on a real date with him. Why not? She was free to date others until she and Max married again. He was a gorgeous young man, tall, with a beautiful body like Max's. The only differences were Max had equipment to have sex with her, and since she wasn't interested in having sex with anyone but Max, then she thought nothing of repaying him with a kind gesture. Alex turned to Christian with a relaxed smile on her face. "What is it that you want? Do you want me to date you? I'd be happy to go on a date." "I want more than that." What more could he want? Alex thought. She agreed that a date was nothing if he'd get a judge and a good lawyer to handle Jonas's case. He may need a private detective too. Therefore, Alex sat back and listened to what Christian wanted. "I want you to marry me." "You want what?" She moved away from Christian to see if he was joking, but he wasn't laughing. He was more than serious, and it appeared that his smooth forehead furrowed, and his eyes narrowed when her voice appeared to raise in annoyance. "I'm serious, Alex. You must have known where this was headed. You're a smart woman. If that is the only way I can have a woman like you as my own, then these are my terms. You have to marry me, or I will not do it. Are you blackmailing me? Because if you are, I will never consent to something like that. If I were to marry you, it would have to be of my own terms. You mistake my intentions. This is not a bribe or extortion, it is a contract we will enter into. If I get Jonas out, and I do all the things to make this case go away, then you have to marry me, or he will rot in jail. Do you think Max will get here in time to keep him out of Rikers Island? A rich man like him will die there or worse, and we don't want to discuss what is worse. Alex stood and marched to the terrace door. Then she turned and with a sour look said, "I'll marry you. I'll do anything to keep Jonas out of jail. Can you get him out tonight?" "I'll not only get him out tonight, but I can get the charges thrown out. But you have to marry me tonight on my yacht. My captain will marry us, and then I'll call my lawyers and the judge that I know who owes me a favor, and Jonas will be a free man." Chapter 17. When Jonas stumbled out of jail with his designer suit dusty and dirty, his white shirt torn and soiled, his wrist from the handcuffs red and sore, state of mind demoralized, the captain of Christian's yacht was marrying Alex and Christian. Jonas looked to the lawyer Christian had sent to expedite his case, took a deep breath and asked, "Can I use your phone to call my sister-in-law Alexander Blackstone? I have to tell her I'm out of jail, and to thank her for what she'd done for me, and that I'll arrive at the hotel in 15 minutes. "You should do more than thank her," the lawyer advised, reaching into his front pocket and handing Jonas the phone. "You might need to call someone else to give them that good news." Jonas reached for the phone, but before he punched in the numbers, he looked over at the lawyer, who had to be in his late 60s with a shock of gray hair, a man who had seen too many courtrooms at this time of night and had argued too many cases in his lifetime. "What do you mean I should call someone else?" Jonas questioned. "I didn't say that. What I meant was you can't call her, and I don't think she's anywhere close enough to the mainland where she can get your call," the attorney said, as they stepped outside the courtroom heading in the direction of the waiting limo. Jonas stopped, then turned to face the lawyer. "Do you know where Alex Blackstone is?" "Well, you must." Jonas narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brow, waiting for the attorney to tell him what he didn't know. "It's my understanding," he gazed at his watch, "she's no longer Alexander Blackstone but Mrs. Kenley by now, and she's sailing away to some island for her honeymoon." "Are you fucking kidding me?" Jonas barked. "I'm a serious man, and if there's one thing I don't do this time of night, is to make fucking jokes. She married Christian as a stipulation that he'd get you out of jail and have the charges dismissed. She signed a contract and it's binding. I can show it to you if you'd like. I'd say she loves you very much. Knowing your reputation, Jonas Blackstone, I'd say she loves you a fucking hell of a lot. Oh, Christian is a young, good-looking man, but he will never be able to be a husband to her. I hope she knows this and knows who she's dealing with." Then the attorney headed for the limo and climbed in. Jonas stood in one spot trying to wrap his brain around why Alex would do such a thing. "I don't have all night, Jonas, are you coming?" the lawyer bellowed. Jonas, with a dark look in his otherwise bright eyes, ambled in the direction of the limo and climbed inside and closed the door, asked for a drink, and the driver angled the car off into the traffic. Of course, Alex knew what Christian was, or thought she'd known, and she'd married him anyway for me, Jonas thought. What the fuck am I going to do when Max finds out? Was the second thought that raced through his mind. Jonas knew one thing, that he had to tell Max and try to stop all of this, but then he couldn't stop anything, it was done, and she had signed an agreement with Christian. What the fuck? Jonas murmured, as he turned away from the lawyer sitting next to him trying to get some sleep before the next rich asshole calls with an emergency. So what was left for Jonas to do now? All he knew was Max had to know the truth. He had to get to the hotel and call him, and hope that Max would answer and take his calls. When Jonas stepped out of the limo, into the hotel, and into the elevator, and opened the door of the suite, Maximilian was standing waiting to see who would walk through those doors. "You look like shit, Jonas. Where the fuck have you been and where's Alex?" "Where is she?" Max questioned to Jonas's surprise. Jonas didn't expect Max to be standing there, and the look on Jonas's face with his furrowed brow and large eyes signaled to Max that something had to be wrong, but he needed to hear it from Jonas first. Was it Alex again? Did someone who had a problem with him or Jonas do something to her? He couldn't go through this again, and he hated himself for exposing her to all Jonas's and his craziness. Jonas needed time to relax and try to modify the story, then he would call Max and explain to him over the phone, but now that idea was shot to hell. Jonas took a deep breath and then exhaled. "Alex is no longer your wife, and you are to blame for that. If you didn't..." "I don't need you to lecture me on what I did wrong. I take full responsibility for being a dick and a fool, but you're responsible too, Jonas," Max barked and strolled over to get a drink from the hotel fridge. He twisted the top off and emptied the small bottle of liquor in a glass and drank it. Jonas didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to break the news to Max. He needed a drink too because he didn't know how Max would react once he told him the whole story, but he needed a clear head first. "You haven't told me where Alex is." "I had my pilot turn the plane around because I finally realized that I would be nothing without Alex. I'm nothing. She saved me from myself and gave me my beautiful children," Max confessed, holding up a now empty glass. "The way I was going, not sleeping and having to deal with all your shit, I almost lost my wife. I'm not blaming you, because none of this would have happened if I hadn't placed a lot of responsibility on her shoulders." Max downed that drink and was headed for another. "When I left last night," Max didn't get a chance to continue before Jonas interrupted. "You were here last night?" "Yes, and where were you?" "Max, do you mean you haven't read the papers or listened to the news?" "I didn't have time. I had to clear up some things with that industrial plant I still owned in Hong Kong, and sell it because it's too much of a headache. It's the reason I didn't have time for Alex and my children. Now I'm going to devote all my time to Alex, and we're going to take the children on a trip as a family. This might be the first time in our lives we're going on a vacation together." Max's eyes smiled along with the closed smile reaching up on both sides of his lips. It appeared that for once he was at peace with himself and contented. Jonas watched Max fall into the sofa, and it appeared for the first time he'd seen his brother with such a broad smile, and it broke his heart when he said, "Alex is no longer your wife." "I know. I fucked up. However, if she accepts my marriage proposal, we can get married right away. I'm going to buy her another ring, the largest one I can find while I'm here in New York, and move her back to civilization." Max gushed with a brightness in his eyes which Jonas had never seen before, and he didn't want to be the one to take that light away, but he had to tell him. Make him understand. "I don't know how to say this. Alex married Christian Kenley tonight." Max stared, as if he couldn't understand the statement. He slanted his head and narrowed his glance as he aimed a glare at Jonas and began laughing. "You're joking, right? You just said that to punish me, right? I deserve to be punished, but not like that." And then the color left Max's face. The wide smile disappeared from his exquisite features, and he wore a dour expression. His thick eyebrow raised, and his eyes narrowed and darkened. When Jonas didn't break into a smile, Max's chest became heavy, and he realized that Jonas was serious. Why the fuck would she do a thing like that when she knows how much I love her? Was she trying to get revenge when she married him? Tell me, Jonas, why would she marry a man like him? And he stepped closer to Jonas, and Jonas stepped backward. Because of me, Jonas said in a small voice, hardly hearing his own words because he'd said those words so low. What the fuck do you mean because of you? Max marched over to the fridge and poured another small bottle into his glass, and drank all of the liquor. Jonas got in a glass and small bottle of scotch in between Max talking about how much he loved Alex, and before Jonas broke the news. Jonas had been sipping on his glass of scotch when he suddenly put it to his lips and swallowed it down. Then Jonas turned to Max. She did it for me, he admitted, his lips trembling and his words shaky. What did you say? Max questioned, breathless, as he advanced in Jonas's direction. Jonas held his breath, closed his eyes, and at that moment Max balled his fist at his side. It took everything inside of him to gain control over his body, mind, and fist to keep from using them on his brother. Never would he have considered using his fist on Jonas, even as he'd given Max all the reasons for doing so. Max never wanted to, until now. His love for his brother was as immense as his love for Alex. Jonas walked back to the sofa, dropped down, and placed the glass on the table. He watched Max's solemn face and sour look, and Max's heavy feet trudged in the direction of the sofa, and slowly Max sat down across from Jonas. Jonas began to confess to Max how he'd gone to a club, met two pretty young girls who appeared to be 20, but were in fact underage, and he'd been too drunk to know or care. He admitted that the girls asked him to go to a party, and he went because he wanted to get laid. One girl hailed a taxi for them to take a short ride to an apartment in the village, and Jonas had gone up there with them to one of the girl's boyfriend's apartment. Jonas told Max how he didn't remember what had happened to the young woman after he'd fucked her, or whether he did or not. He might have jacked off on her, and that's why she had his semen on her body. Jonas went on to state to Max about how he didn't know how the woman died, or who brought her in the alley, and that she was a runaway. The police told Jonas that they'd identified her immediately when they arrested him, and after they'd found her. The police claimed later they did a DNA test, and found his semen on her body and clothes. Max listened intently until Jonas had concluded the story. They sat for hours without talking, or Max being accusatory of Jonas as he expected, but it never came. Finally Max said, "I have to find Alex. Do you know where she is?" "From what I understand from Christian's lawyer, they're on his yacht." "Then I'll find them no matter how long it takes." The look in Max's eyes scared Jonas, and he wasn't easy to scare since this ordeal. However, lately Jonas had too many shocking experiences that just about wore him down, and he was at his breaking point. "What are you going to do, Max?" Jonas questioned. He'd never seen Max like this before. The look in his eyes, a faraway gaze, terrified Jonas. He'd seen that one time before with Max when Alex was kidnapped, and that episode with Robert, and it was anyone's guess what happened in Robert's apartment when Max was alone with him on Robert's final days. Max reached for his phone and called his driver, "Meet me out front in 3 minutes." And he shoved his phone in his pocket and glanced over at Jonas and answered his question. "What do you think I'm going to do? All I ask of you is that you don't get into any more fucking trouble until I return. I need you to go home and take care of my children. I hope you can do that without any problems." I don't need any more worries and headaches. Do you understand? Max turned and headed for the door. Jonas followed Max to the door, and before Max stepped outside, Jonas's breath hitched and he said, "Bring Alex back, will you?" "Those are my intentions," Max said with a low, ominous voice, and he closed his eyes for a second, turned away, and left Jonas standing by the open door.